Hello, this is Bentvnewsroundupthis News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ended. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. The UK government has criticized President Donald Trump after sparking row over the retweet of videos from British extremist group Britain First. The UK government said it was wrong for Mr. Trump to have retweeted the videos.
Britain First is an extremist organisation which seeks to divide communities through their use of hateful narratives which spread lies and stoke tensions. The deputy leader of Britain First is subject to a pending criminal trial accused of religiously aggravated harassment over the alleged distribution of leaflets and the posting of online material. British people overwhelmingly reject the prejudiced rhetoric of the far right, which is the antithesis of the values that this country represents: decency, tolerancy, respect. We will stand with them in doing so. This is why we launched our counter-extremism strategy in 2015 and why we launched the Hate Crime Action Plan just last year. So this House should be clear that this government will not tolerate any groups who spread hate by demonising those of other faiths or ethnicities and who deliberately raise community fears and tensions. And we have been clear. President Donald Trump was wrong to retweet videos posted by far-right group Britain First. When we look at the wider picture, the relationship between the UK and America, then I know how valuable the friendship is between our two nations. And as Home Secretary, I can tell the House that the importance of the relationship between our countries, the unparalleled sharing of intelligence between our countries, is vital. It has undoubtedly saved British lives. That is the bigger picture here, and I would urge people to remember that.
The evidence of that is even after the Prime Minister said he was wrong, he decided to stand by Britain First. Yeah. And I say to the Home Secretary, it's no good saying we've been robust. You've been robust before. It's not made the blindest bit of difference. He's a repeat offender, and it will go on and on and on. You cannot stand up to this kind of action. You cannot stand up to horrible racism or pretend to do so and invite the man in through the front door. Yeah. In the past, the Home Secretary repeatedly and quite rightly, when she was Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, when she was Home Secretary, said homophobes and racists who will stir up hatred in this country will not be allowed in this country, and if they come to this country, they'll be arrested. That's what should happen in this case, and the Home Secretary knows it. Just say it.
Home Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I would say to the honourable gentleman, there is no pretence here. We are absolutely clear in the action that we will take against people who propagate hate. And he should not underestimate the Prime Minister's views on this and the Prime Minister's absolute clarity on criticising the President and showing that to the public in her comment to him. So I won't take any criticism for him on the fact that this side of the House, this government, is committed to the agenda of making sure that we protect people, we promote British values, and I will continue to take that position from here.
Meanwhile, more people around the world have condemned the violent videos retweeted by Mr. Trump, just as the White House press secretary defended the president over that retweet.
Britain First! Fighting back! Britain First! Fighting back!
Britain's First is widely seen as an extreme fringe right-wing group with little political influence, led by convicted criminals. In the early hours of Wednesday, the Twitter account registered to Donald Trump retweeted 3 videos posted by Britain's first deputy leader, Jada Franson. 2 show acts of violence. Another apparently showed a Muslim man breaking a statue of the Virgin Mary. The videos can't be verified, but there are widespread claims that at least one of them is fake. The White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, defended President Trump's actions.
Regardless of the video, the threat is very real. The president has talked about the need for strong borders and strong security.
See this cross? This will prevail.
Jada Franson was convicted of religiously aggravated harassment last year. Other leaders of the group have also been jailed.
Britain First is basically a movement coming out from the failure of existing existing far-right, more structured political movements. This is further legitimization of xenophobia and right-wing extremism, which we are actually experiencing in the Western globe. I don't think that is just Trump. I think that is actually a Western phenomenon.
The words "Britain first" were shouted by the killer of opposition, MP Jo Cox, in 2016, though no direct link to the group was proven. Her widower voiced dismay at the U.S. president's retweets.
When we have an Islamist-inspired attack, we rightly question where this hatred comes from. We ask ourselves, who are the hate preachers? Groups like this are doing exactly the same thing, in this case for the far right, and the President of the United States is supporting them and giving them a microphone.
The British Prime Minister's office called the president's actions wrong, while the Archbishop of Canterbury described the episode as deeply disturbing. Late Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump responded to the criticism and took a jab at May in a tweet. Several opposition MPs called for Trump's proposed visit to Britain next year to be canceled, but the government said plans for the trip are progressing.
Pensioners in Nigeria have expressed their dissatisfaction at the way government has treated pensioners in the country. Pensioners in Nigeria are being owed as much as 3 months' arrears in unpaid benefits.
The singing and dancing might give an impression that the crowd here is a happy one, but that is a mask of their true feeling, because once they remember the agenda that had brought them out, the grounds become filled with fallen faces of the elderly. These are pensioners in Osun State, southwest Nigeria, who have come out in their hundreds to seek divine intervention. A sad twist, considering they have spent virtually all their lives working for the government and now have to fight to get their just deserves. This blind man does not let his impediment deter him from missing this. Their prayer session ends and a new order takes over, taking their grievance to the streets in protest, laying their demands at the doorstep of the state government and calling on the higher power to wade into the crises.
Payment of arrears of 18 months and pension without any further delay. Our pension is non-taxable emolument. So, any form of taxation must be stopped with immediate effect. We therefore request the federal government to set up a high-power special committee to probe how the latest fund, that is, over deduction of Paris Club loan, is utilized.
In neighboring Ekiti State, these pensioners expressed their distrust of the government in coming to their aid, going back down memory lane to the era of the infamous tenure of a former pension boss, Abdulrasheed Maina, who is alleged to have misappropriated funds estimated to be around 2 billion naira. His recent reinstatement into the civil service after being declared wanted caused an uproar. Thus, the call for his arrest to face the charges leveled against him.
The case of Mena is a case of betrayal. A betrayal of pensioners, a betrayal of government, a betrayal of the entire citizens of Nigeria. A man, his case must not stop at being sacked. The man must be arrested and prosecuted diligently.
So, it is no surprise that the frustration is being transferred to the current Executive Secretary of the Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate. These pensioners are not satisfied with certain aspects of our approach and are calling for a removal.
Our agitation is that all our members that are not on payroll should be restated immediately. We have written a lot of documents and letters to them that they should restate them immediately. Government is owing us 32% of 18 months of our arrears. We want that money immediately.
It will be interesting to see how the federal government of Nigeria turn things around and calm the frayed nerves of these pensioners who have been hung out to dry time without number.
Benue State government has passed into law a bill that prohibits herdsmen from moving around with their cattle. This follows the incessant clashes between farmers and herdsmen that have resulted in the death of thousands of innocent people across parts of Nigeria.
We cannot continue to live in fear, and we cannot continue to live with killers who have no respect for human lives, who killed, who maimed, who rape our women and children, who destroy our farmlands and who destroy our property.
About time, many would say. Although there are those who would have preferred that the action taken by the governor happened a lot earlier to prevent avoidable deaths and destruction of property, allegedly committed by herdsmen who lead their cattle onto farms, wiping out villages if confronted. The action of the governor is supported by citizens who have lost loved ones and livelihood, and those who fear for being the next victims.
We support the government and the governor of Benue State for the anti-open grazing bill, because if you look at it, Benue State is the food basket of the nation, and if you don't go to the farm, you cannot produce that much food.
The governor swung into action, setting up grazing marshals to enforce the law. At this meeting with stakeholders, the head of the committee and security advisors of the governor lays down the rules.
You will stay in those areas that you bring your cattle back to rest for the night, and then the next morning you want to take them to go on queue. That will not happen again. You will only buy food and give them. That is what is going to happen. You will not move in that area again.
But this does not go down well with the herdsmen, who feel they're being suppressed. The spokesperson relays their message.
Look at that road and attempt to bury them on the ground. Because as far as they are concerned, we don't know any other business apart from the personal business. And when the law says they should stay at the place permanently and they should be buying food to feed their cows from farmers, as far as they are concerned, that is a task that they do not have the strength to shoulder.
The feeling of not being in control appears too unimaginable for the herdsmen, who decide to move into the neighboring state of Cross River. And in no time, there is trouble, and one person has been killed. The villagers, mostly women, are incensed and want nothing to do with the herdsmen. The governor of Cross River is livid by the development and calls on the federal government to take the bull by the horn and stop the violence.
This is not something federal government will leave in the hands of the state. It's a thing that is very urgent. It is a thing that can split people. Federal government must come and take this decision. Federal government must have the courage to bring a scientific approach to ranching. And that's what this country needs at this point in time.
Indeed it is, because not long after the incident in Cross River State, 11 people are killed in Plateau State. The feeling there is the same as the other places where the violence occurred. Anguish and anger.
Tell us what we have done in Bureau of Land. Why are we being killed?
There is no love lost between the cattle and the grass, but there is certainly a problem with those who control them. And the sooner the differences are permanently resolved by the authorities, the better. Otherwise, there may be nothing left to fight over.
The global progress that has been made against malaria, especially in Africa, is at risk of being put on hold. The World Health Organization, in its annual report, has warned that global fight against malaria disease is dwindling due to lack of funding. The World Organization stated that malaria cases are on the rise in several countries, especially in Africa.
The World Health Organization highlights that many countries are moving towards eliminating malaria, among them Madagascar, Senegal and Zimbabwe. But the report warns that in many countries, progress has stalled. There was an increase in malaria cases of more than 20% in 8 African countries from 2015 to 2016, including Rwanda, Nigeria and the Democratic Republic of Congo. At the same time, funding for malaria prevention and treatment has levelled off, reaching $2.7 billion in 2016, less than half of the 2020 target.
That amount of funding internationally has plateaued. Possibly it's reached the realistic maximum, and it's always been assumed, indeed it's been important, that countries themselves should commit to funding malaria control. And I think the big opportunity now is for those countries to step up and realise that this is good value.
Overall, it is Africa that continues to bear the highest burden of the disease, with approximately 401,000 deaths in 2016, a slight decrease from the previous year. Despite earlier fears, the malaria parasite does not yet appear to be developing drug resistance in the region.
The current treatments within Africa, they work very well. There is resistance in Southeast Asia, which is spread, which is potentially going to be more of a problem in the future. Insecticide resistance has spread much more. That's the resistance in the mosquitoes.
In addition to improving the coverage of existing methods of malaria prevention, the WHO calls for urgent investment in new tools.
More research is needed to develop an effective malaria vaccine that could cover the populations that at the moment have high malaria rates and that perhaps don't use the available interventions even when they are being funded.
Several malaria vaccines are under development. The WHO is planning a major trial of the so-called RTSS vaccine starting next year in Kenya, Ghana and Malawi. But its latest report warns the world is at a crossroads. Without better funding and more effective rollout of tools to tackle malaria, the progress made in recent decades could be undone.
Following the leadership change in Zimbabwe that led to the resignation of the longtime President Robert Mugabe, Zimbabweans are calling for the implementation of policies that will improve the economy. The new government has come under pressure to create an enabling environment for job and economic stability.
Innocent Kagadora should not be here. The 23-year-old holds a political science degree from Zimbabwe's top university. Yet because of Zimbabwe's soaring unemployment, which many blame on former President Robert Mugabe, here he is. Since graduating in 2015, he spends his time on this corner, selling phones 14 hours a day. His colleagues call him Comrade Graduate. He said he takes home $10 a day. Not enough, he says, to help his father.
It hurts him a lot to say, my son has a degree, my son is educated enough in Zimbabwe, but he can't even afford to send me groceries at the end of the month.
So, help me God.
New President Emerson Mnangagwa says he will improve the economy, and students plan to hold him to that promise. On the first day of his presidency, student leaders met in Harare to mobilize the youth vote for elections scheduled next year.
We will basically be calling him to account in terms of the things that he has promised. So every citizens, every young people are ways to see these things getting into reality.
At their alma mater, students say they're hopeful, but say they want leaders to change their mentality and focus on the future, not the glories of the past.
You listen to them, most of their speeches, they're still talking about the liberation struggle. I appreciate what they did, yes, but I think it's time for us to move away from that now. The ideas back then, they are not fit for the world that we're in right now.
We're hoping that with the new change in government and all that, things are going to get better.
And they worry about the youth coming behind them, like 16-year-old advocate Kambeu, who really shouldn't be here, on a Harare street corner, selling $11 shoes on a school day. If he could afford school fees, he says, he could do big things.
I want to do politics. I think I'm talented in politics.
Mnangagwa has laid out an ambitious program of economic reform, and millions of energetic, talented young Zimbabweans, like Innocent, Ostalos, Nyasha, Nadine, and Advocate, are counting on him.
Meanwhile, Zimbabweans have called on the new president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, to ensure that justice is served on all perpetrators of corruption and human rights abuse without fear or favor.
President Emerson Mnangagwa sees only one way forward for his wounded nation, battered by human rights abuses and endemic corruption: forgiveness.
I just humbly appeal to all of us that we let bygones by bygones.
But just a day later, the state jailed former Mugabe-era minister Ignatius Chombo on massive corruption charges.
I think that they're just using him to try and portray an image of dealing with corruption and so forth. But the cases that my client is facing, these are very old cases. I think the most recent is 2005, which shows that there is nothing really serious on his part. Is just to harass him and then to try and create the impression that we are dealing with corruption.
Human rights lawyers say there are worse crimes and more serious culprits who are being protected.
If there are crimes that have been committed, everybody should
in fact, be put on trial. It shouldn't be selective at all. It shouldn't depend on which faction you belong to. Are you on our side or the other side? If the law is being used to right wrongs of the past, this should be done with everybody.
Many Zimbabweans do not want former leaders to rest in glory. Patson Zamara's older brother Itai was abducted in 2015 for opposing Mugabe. He's still missing.
The current president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, played a very major role, and so he's complicit. He was a part of that arrangement and government. And for us to sweep that under the carpet and say that was that and life just has to go on as though nothing happened, I don't think it's proper.
Churches, which occupy a powerful role in Zimbabwe, are also struggling with the notion of letting bygones be. Pastor Chris Oporocha says he looks to other African nations for guidance.
In Zambia, we saw when President Levi Mwanawasa came into office, Chiluba, who was the outgoing president, was not given any immunity. He had to pay for the crimes that he did. He might not be sentenced to prison, but whatever evil has been done should be brought to light so that those people are dealt with.
Zimbabwe, its people agree, has to move forward.
And with that, we conclude the news roundup for this hour. Thank you for being part of the program. Tunde Alabi, enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.
As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create a platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely green community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, the voice, your opinion on our TV.